Welcome to Study Smart, the weekly show for wine students who want to take their wine education to the next level. I'm your host, Gill Gordon Smith, and in this episode we're breaking down another important wine region. With exam strategies and techniques to help you reach the next level in your wine education, this is Study Smart. Welcome back to the Italian Wine Podcast Study Smart for your WSET Level 3 series. And today we're travelling through one of the world's great wine regions, the Northern Rhône. Now our journey follows the Rhône River from the historic town of Vienne south to Valence, a distance of around 95 kilometres. And although this is only a relatively short stretch of river, it contains some of France's most prestigious vineyards and some of the finest expressions of Syrah in the world. So one of the first things to understand for WSET Level 3 is that the Rhône Valley is divided into two very different regions. The Northern Rhône has a moderate continental climate, steep granite slopes, and a strong focus on Syrah and aromatic white varieties. Further south, the climate becomes Mediterranean because the landscape flattens and opens out and blends dominate. The Rhône River is much more than a geographical feature. It reflects light and heat back towards the vineyards, helping grapes ripen in this relatively cool climate. And many of the finest vineyards faced east or southeast towards the river, so they capture the gentle morning sun while avoiding the hottest afternoon temperatures. And these aspects are critical because Syrah is being grown close to its northern ripening limit. Now, the Northern Rhône is famous for its dramatic slopes, and many vineyards are planted on ancient granite hillsides supported by stone terraces. And these slopes are so steep that almost all vineyard work must be carried out by hand because machinery is largely impossible to use. So this makes production expensive and labour intensive. Winter storms and heavy rain constantly erode the terraces, meaning growers spend countless hours rebuilding walls and carrying soil back uphill. Now, climate is one of the defining influences on wine style. So summers here are warm, but not excessively hot. Winters are cold, and vintage variation can be quite significant. And in cooler years, Syrah may struggle to reach full ripeness. So this is why site selection is essential. South-facing and southeast-facing vineyards receive more sunlight and therefore produce wines with greater concentration and riper tannins. A feature that you should always remember is the Mistral wind. This cold, dry wind blows down the Rhône Valley from the north. Although it's more influential in the southern Rhône, it still plays an important role here because it rapidly dries the canopy after rain, so it reduces fungal disease and allows growers to use fewer vineyard treatments. And at the same time, it increases evaporation and it can stress vines if water is limited. Strong winds also encourage thicker grape skins, so they contribute to deeper colour, firmer tannins, and the black pepper character so typical of Northern Rhône Syrah. Granite dominates the geology of much of the region, although schist, gneiss, and pockets of loess and alluvial soils also occur. Granite's poor and free draining, so it encourages vines to send their roots deep into the subsoil. Lower vigour generally means lower yields and greater flavour concentration. Syrah is unquestionably the star of the Northern Rhône and is the only black grape permitted in the region's red appellations. So here it produces deeply coloured wines with medium to high tannins, medium to high acidity, and flavours of blackberry, black cherry, plum, black pepper, and violet. And with bottle age, these wines develop notes of smoked meat, leather, licorice, olive, and game. Viognier is the signature white grape of the Northern Rhône, and it's naturally low in acidity but produces wonderfully aromatic wines with apricot, peach, honeysuckle, and orange blossom characters. Because it accumulates sugar rapidly, alcohol levels can become high, so cooler sites and large day to night temperature differences help preserve freshness. Marsanne is another white grape allowed here, and that contributes body, richness, and texture, and Roussanne brings higher acidity, floral aromas, and greater aging potential. And together they form the basis of many of the region's white wines. One of the most famous winemaking traditions is the co-fermentation of Syrah with a small proportion of Viognier. So rather than blending finished wines, both grapes ferment together. In Côte Rôtie, up to 20% Viognier is permitted, although most producers use far less. The Viognier lifts floral aromatics, softens texture, and helps to stabilize colour through interactions between the tannins and the anthocyanins during the fermentation. This is something to really remember because this could be a question in your exam. Now let's travel through the appellations. Starting in the north, you have Côte Rôtie, meaning the roasted slope, and these spectacular vineyards overlook the Rhône on steep granite terraces. The wines here are elegant rather than massive, and they combine perfume, violet, black pepper, and smoked meat with impressive aging potential, and many of the world's finest Syrahs come from here. Just south lies Condrieu, dedicated entirely to Viognier, and these rich dry wines display intense apricot, peach, and floral aromas with full body and generous alcohol. Now, within Condrieu sits a tiny monopole, Chateau Gruyère, one of France's smallest appellations, and this produces highly distinctive Viognier from a single estate. The appellation of Saint-Joseph stretches for more than 50 kilometres, and quality varies considerably here because of its size, but the finest steep hillside vineyards produce elegant Syrah, while Marsanne and Roussanne make textured whites. Crozes-Hermitage surrounds the famous hill of Hermitage, and its flatter vineyards allow mechanisation and generally produce approachable wines for early drinking, although the best examples offer excellent value. And now we come to Hermitage, one of France's greatest vineyards. The steep south-facing granite hill captures maximum sunlight and produces powerful structured Syrah capable of aging for decades. White Hermitage from Marsanne and Roussanne is equally respected for its richness and longevity. If you go further south, you'll find Cornas, and this is the warmest red appellation of the northern Rhône. It produces 100% Syrah, and it's renowned for deeply coloured, full-bodied wines with concentrated dark fruit, firm tannins, and excellent aging potential. Finally, Saint-Péray specialises in Marsanne and Roussanne, producing both still and traditional methods sparkling wines. From an examination perspective, always explain relationships rather than simply memorising facts. The steep slopes improve exposure but require hand harvesting. Granite reduces vigour and concentrates flavour. The Mistral wind reduces disease, but it increases water stress. The south-facing sites improve ripening. Co-fermentation with Viognier enhances aroma and colour. If you can find these links between climate, site, grape variety, and wine style, this is exactly what the examiners are looking for. So when you think of the Northern Rhône, remember a short valley from Vienne to Valence, dramatic granite terraces, the cooling influence of the Mistral, Syrah grown at its northern limit, aromatic Viognier, and a collection of appellations that together produce some of the world's most distinctive and age-worthy wines. So here are our key takeaways. The Rhône River runs from Vienne to Valence, reflecting light and moderating vineyard temperatures. It has a moderate continental climate with significant vintage variation. The steep granite slopes require hand harvesting and careful terrace maintenance. The Mistral wind reduces disease pressure, dries the canopy, increases evapotranspiration, and contributes to thicker grape skins. The granite soils are poor and free-draining, which limits vigour and concentrates flavour. Syrah is the only permitted black grape in the northern Rhône appellations. Viognier produces highly aromatic wines and may be co-fermented with Syrah in Côte Rôtie. Marsanne adds body and richness. Roussanne contributes acidity, perfume, and aging potential. Côte Rôtie, elegant Syrah. Condrieu, Viognier. Chateau Gruyère, a tiny monopole. Hermitage, the most prestigious. Crozes-Hermitage, approachable. Saint-Joseph, varied styles. Cornas, 100% powerful Syrah. Saint-Péray, white and sparkling. So, remember, rather than memorising isolated facts, always explain cause and effect. Link climate, topography, soils, grape variety, viticulture and winemaking to the finished style, quality and price of the wine. Now for our Study Smart neuroscience study technique. And today I'm going to talk about sleep and memory. So we've explored how memory works, why forgetting actually helps learning, and why spacing beats cramming, and also why understanding is more powerful than memorising. But today we're going to talk about something every learner does, but you don't realise it's actually part of studying, and that's sleep. So here's something remarkable. When you finish studying, your brain doesn't, and while you're asleep, it keeps working. It doesn't learn new information, but it's strengthening what you've already learned. And scientists call this memory consolidation. So that's the process of turning fragile short-term memories into stronger, longer-lasting ones. So think of your brain like a librarian. So during the day, books are dropped all over the floor, and during the night, the librarian puts them back on the right shelves, and it links them with related books and throws out some of the clutter. And the next day, finding that information is much easier. So different stages of your sleep help in different ways. Your deep sleep strengthens facts and knowledge. Your REM sleep helps connect ideas, solve problems, and recognize patterns. And your brain needs both. So let's bust a myth. The myth is the more hours I study, the better I'll remember. But not if those hours come at the expense of good sleep. So studying for another 2 hours, but sleeping 2 hours less, often leaves you remembering less, not more. You can still study at night. If you learn best, that's fine. But the important thing is giving your brain enough sleep afterwards to finish the learning process. So here's your experiment this week. Study something important, then get a full night's sleep. And the next morning, before you open your notes, see how much you can remember. You'll often recall more than you expected. So here's your reflection challenge. Am I treating sleep as time away from learning or as part of the learning itself? Because the smartest learners don't just schedule study sessions, they also protect their sleep. Because that's when today's learning becomes tomorrow's knowledge. So join me next week for another Study Smarter tip where we'll discover another simple way to make your learning stick and go and explore another wine region. Thank you for listening to Study Smart. If you're ready to take your wine education to the next level, why not visit the Italian Wine Academy at italianwineacademy.org. Don't forget to tune in next week when we'll be exploring another important wine region. Until then, chin chin with the Italian wine people.